Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to the MineWarp podcast, everyone. It's great to have you listening in again, and I hope that you'll enjoy our episode as much as we enjoy having the discussion today. So today we're having a three-way discussion, and I have two guests, and both of them are from Brazil. So don't worry, the conversation won't be in Portuguese because that'll be even more garbled than what it sounds to me. but but I'd like to introduce our two guests just by name quickly, and then I will ask each of them to do a quick introduction of themselves. So I have Danilo Ongaro and Geraldo Dutra Neto with me this morning. And I'm going to ask them to just do a quick introduction, who you are and your current role, what you are doing.
Okay.
Over to you, Danilo.
Perfect. Okay, let's start. It's a pleasure. Thanks, Empie, for the invitation. I'm a engineer, electrical engineer, and I have more than 30 years of experience in industry. I'm not that old, but I started really young.
Not as old as I am.
I started really young, we were 14 years old and never stopped. And so I'm always interested in automation, digitalization, all these technology things that move the world, move the industry. So I got involved in several positions, several activities around several segments, and more recently in mining, especially in extraction. Where I have the opportunity to meet Geraldo, who was developing amazing business, amazing solutions. So we create connection. We try to help each other. It was a really exciting experience, and that's how it goes. Now today I'm helping some customers in Brazil. I'm helping some clients to try to communicate and share their solutions and initiatives in the market. As Geraldo provides and creates really good product and really good solutions that the market needs to know what happened.
Thanks for that, Danilo. And what Danilo is not also saying is that we're also starting to work together on an exciting new project called BVerified. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that at a later stage. So we're working on the plans, aren't we, Danilo?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks so much. Geraldo, over to you.
Hello, thank you for this invitation too. I'm glad to stay here with you guys. And my name is Geraldo Dutra. I'm CEO of Stale Tecnologia. Stale Tecnologia develop fleet management systems in Brazil. One company more than 20 years. And basically about me, I'm a family man. I'm a Christian. I have two kids and a wife, and I live this situation in technological area, and I think that I started when I was 12 or 13, very young, and my first job, official job with technology was with 17, and I started developing systems very young, and I entered almost 15 years ago, and in the mining sector, and developed Easymine, our FMS. And today I'm continues this work in Brazil with a little bit projects in outside Brazil. And it just is. I'm just a technological guy in the small city in Brazil, in the middle of Brazil, in Araxá. But is this about me and not more than this?
Well, welcome to the podcast. And you say you're just a technology guy, but the fact is you're also an entrepreneur, right? You are a technology guy that had a business idea and that was able to convert that business idea into a successful product. And that is more than many people can say. As a matter of fact, if statistics are to be believed, then the vast majority of people with great ideas don't make
Yeah.
it in the business world.
Yes, it's strange because when they talk about it with us, we don't look at this position. We don't look at do it. We don't need to do, but we know
Mm,
we are more than others. But I understand that this point is very positive.
mm. Geraldo, I want to ask you, yes, you may be a technology guy, but how did your connection with technology begin? Where did you start getting interested in technology?
Yes, I remember I and my friends we started very young. And my friends today is my partners on the company almost 13 years
Hmm.
about these friendships. And
Mm,
we just look for computers and broken a lot of the computers and and understand how can the computers hardware's computers is useful and
mm,
the chips, the components, and they understand the operational system very young and Linux. And with
mm.
15 years, with 15, we started to develop systems with Delphi, and
Okay.
we bought a record DVD. Do you remember, Danilo, the DVD recorder? And
Yes,
and
yes,
when
yes,
we make a lot
DVR.
of down. Yes, and we made a lot of downloads and with a modem with dial-up modem, and
Mm.
we made our first company. It was I don't know the name. I don't know the name with games and with 15s and we download these games and
Ah, okay.
and created a software with Delphi to extract these games, install in computer to sell the games. It was
Mm,
our first company, very young.
mm,
But
mm,
at the end, we just play the games, not sell nothing.
mm.
but it's opening our mind to understand because
Mm,
it's another years. It's not today.
mm,
Today without informations that we doesn't have Google, just Hasta la Vista and the others
mm,
searches
mm.
and what was great for our experience today. And at 17, I started my first job and repair and maintenance in computers in a
Okay.
local store here in our city. And after that, I go to civil engineer to work with AutoCAD projects, supply, and stay for 7 years.
Okay.
After,
Wow.
and during my academic school,
Mm,
and
mm,
was a great base for what is happening after that, the mining.
mm. It's interesting how I think Brazil, like so many other countries, maybe Australia is similar, Chile, South Africa, you cannot get away from mining, right? It's
Yes,
like
yes.
whatever you do, sometime or somehow you're going to be involved in mining if you live in those countries. So, did you always have in the back of your mind that you might get involved in the mining industry or not really?
Yes, yes. What is the point of interest in my history is I live in Araxá, Minas Gerais, in Brazil. We have
Mm,
the niobium, the reserve, the greatest niobium reserve in the world here,
okay.
and a lot of mining companies here, is biggest mining companies, and we breathe and we live mining every time when I was a child. My my partner, my father partners here
Mm,
work at one this company, and every time we will go to the mining companies at the school, and every time
mm,
if
mm,
you go around our city, you can see the mining companies here. It's impossible to not connect in mining in Araxá. Everything is mining here, and our state too. That our
mm,
state is Minas Gerais. That's
mm,
mine, General Mines, I think, is the name
mm,
in our
mm.
states. And it's a great potential to connect everything to mine here.
Basically,
it's
where
more.
mining born.
Yes, yes, it's more than work with mine. We is a mine born. You speak correctly, Danilo.
Yeah.
This
Danilo,
is
you
everything.
grew up in São Paulo, did you, Danilo?
Yeah, I grew up in São Paulo all the time, but travel the whole country, visiting several segments, and mining was amazing. Outside all other segments, but mining is really outstanding to see how the things happen, to see how they work hard to collect and transform, and to be able to, for us to be able to use everything we have in our daily life. As you mentioned, everything comes from mining. There's no way to run from it.
And I find it really important, this kind of, I think it's the water we swim in, it's the air we breathe, the fact that there's so much mining in our cultures, because it is important as a technologist, maybe, like I'm also of background, that you have to understand mining before you can try to develop software for mines. You can't just one day decide, I want to create a fleet management system for mines, and off you go, but you don't understand the real business problem. So I want to ask you to each a question. First, Danilo, and then Geraldo, you can give your perspective as well. But Danilo, if you have to try and give me a definition. Geraldo talked earlier about fleet management systems. How would you define a fleet management system?
Oh, that's a tricky question, because everybody thinks differently about fleet management. Everybody,
exactly.
It's a challenge. When you are able to control the information, to instruct the operator, to register what is happening during the shifts, during the working, during the shift that the operator, what he's doing, and you collect it, this can be considered a fleet management. You are controlling where your machines are, what your operators are doing, and you can evaluate it. And this, for me, is like the base, but it can be much bigger than that. We can even reach the autonomous, where the dispatch, all the information goes automatically, come back automatically again. So there's a lot of opportunity to grow based on each necessity. It's like not fits for everybody. I believe that Geraldo can go deeper on that, but this is how I understand.
Geraldo, your perspective?
It's a complex term, because how you said, everyone understand one part of this concept. But after these 20 years developing FMS, I understand about this fleet management system is more a collection of features to deliver fleet management. I can explain about if you have a single track in your car, and you have a fleet management system. Okay, it's because the track is a feature. Okay. When you talk about road vehicles like trucks, if you get the telemetry and track for the systems, for the trucks, for the equipment, it's a fleet management systems too. It's okay. When you talk about the FMS to mining, you need a lot of other features like dispatch, like integration with operation, planning, maintenance, everything. It's fleet management systems. What's different for one for the other? How can these features return gains for the users and the mining and the customers? It's different. It's about collection of the features for me.
So that brings me to, I guess, the core question that I always ask my guests. I mean, you've created this company called Easymine, and with the technology, fleet management technology. But what are the core business problems? Because, some people start from vehicle telemetry and managing the vehicle. Others start
Yeah.
from tracking. Others
Yes.
start from dispatch. Others start from planning. And they are all kind of, as you just talked about, the collection of features, they are all features that can be there. But what was the real first core business problem, Geraldo, that you guys wanted to solve?
Yes. The first core problem is correct decisions to reduce costs. It's can occur by you can gain productivity and cost and reduce costs is the first of the one. And this you can
Okay.
stay different ways to do it. Gain productivity and more production. Less fuel and a lot of things about it. But it's if you have the start with features and about fleet management systems, you have the main core of the problem. You discussed how can you integrate everything, how can you put everything to work to gain to gain the return of the system, to gain reduce cost, for example. I think is the main objective.
You talked about the infrastructure that's got to be there. I want to throw that back at you, Danilo. I mean, you have sold and implemented connectivity solutions or infrastructures at mines and so on before. Do you find, let's talk about Brazil specifically. Is connectivity in mines common in Brazil, or is it still very in its early development phases?
No, I think the connectivity in Brazil and I think in a great part of the world is the problem. I will talk about Brazil because I live the situation every day, but I know another mines in another countries there's a problem too. And because we talk about results, okay? I will explain more with a sample. If I put Danilo mining or sample fleet management system, and Danilo just have a simple tablet, and Danilo Danilo don't have connectivity in his mine. He just collect the data after one day or when the shift turn, for example. It's a fleet management system. Okay, it's a fleet management system, but the real of Danilo, when the shift turn is okay for him. But Empie needs a fleet management system in real time to take decisions in real time with a control room. And in this control room needs to understand our parameters and our KPIs in the fleet management system to take a correct decision. Is not so easy. And when I talk just about the entire structure of fleet management system, we provide the embedded computers, dedicated computers. We provide the Wi-Fi network in the mine or private LTE. You can put your server on premise or on cloud. It's different for the structure, and because it's not just you can put your one tablet in one truck and a load. No, you can understand our structure. And what the important point is, each mine have a different type of the work. One mine like server on premise, other no, it's on cloud. And one mine have money to pay private LTE, but don't or public GPRS. Other mine other mine needs to put Wi-Fi because they don't have public GPRS, and you need to understand these blocks, mold these blocks like a Lego.
Yeah. I remember a few years ago, I was working with Deloitte at the time, developing what they called the Deloitte Intelligent Mine. And one of the concepts in there was certainly connectivity, And we were demonstrating that at the mining indaba in Cape Town, one here. And one of the mine managers who was in the audience, he stopped us and he said to us, "This technology you are explaining to us is very, it's very forward thinking, and I love what you are doing, and thanks for the thought leadership and so on." But then he said, "But if my network goes down, will my mine come to a standstill?" And that was a big risk. So Danilo, I want to ask you, is this something that you find that mines, that is a limitation for mines, or I should say, is an obstacle for mines in adopting more digital technologies, that they find the risk is too high? They're afraid that if they invest in it, then they leave themselves open to IT-related interruption.
You're totally right, Empie. That it's a risk, and they are right to be afraid of it. Talking about connectivity, all mines, they understand that from years ago. They understand that this is necessary. They understand that this is a reality. But as Geraldo mentioned, every mine different. Even the same commodity that is produced or extracted, even that one mine is different from other, different persons that lead this mine, different procedures, different ways how the mine works or operates in the daily, and this impacts. So that is not only the technology, it's not only what we have available, but the problem is the variety of what we have available to fit to purpose, to fit to the operation, because you cannot, one thing that miners don't want is to add another problem or add another thing to control, to have issues, to have to be care about all the time, like because they already have equipment people, they already have a lot of things to manage. They want a solution. They want something to make their life easier, fast, more productive, generate more money. So there's the impact, and different from other industries where it's more easy to establish like a backbone, establish a fail-safe system to keep running. If something fails, you have a second layer that can take control. In mine, this is not possible most of the time. So it's a risk. I believe that this is going to change in the future. It's going to change a lot. I'm seeing, for example, even Starlink is a kind of company that is broken some concepts, is breaking some barriers in the industry, in the connectivity, how the things can go. So I believe that will be different in future. But today that is a risk, and this makes total sense for the miners to be careful about that, because the operation is more important.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think you are spot on. It is a risk, but it is also becoming less and less of a risk. I always remember when, in the days of COVID-19, when everyone had to work from home, connectivity was a massive risk. And within a very short time, the world had expanded, or I should say, maybe the world had shrunk to a point where you could do a lot of the work online, and the reliance on connectivity in people's mind, the fear maybe reduced a bit, because they learned that they can actually rely a little bit more on connectivity. And of course, the connectivity providers also responded. Connectivity became cheaper and more reliable and so on. So you know what, maybe there was some good that came out of all that mess in the end as well. Geraldo, I want to ask you something. Always when we are talking about fleet management systems, there are two connected disciplines that come up in the discussion. The one is short interval control, as Danilo was saying earlier, the ability to control, and you were talking about the ability to know and make decisions almost in real time. And the other thing that always comes up is automation. Because you cannot automate something unless you know where it is and what it is doing very much in real time. So, with regards to the work that you are doing in Easymine, what is your thoughts on automation? And does Easymine also contribute towards automation of the machine and of the fleet?
Yes, we think the one of the big problem in the decision in the mine is bad data. I think when you wait for a correct input for operator, for manager, and in a display, push a button, you can provide a human error. It's not good for data for decision. Okay. And we work with this baseline in Easymine. This baseline is mine, and we work to automate what is possible. For example, the cycle data and the truck,
Right.
And we can read the telemetry system with OEM like Caterpillar, Komatsu, and get this data to automate our system. Highway scales, for example, weight bridges, and in the travel. But I think there's a problem to automate everything. Depends of the project, for example.
Okay.
If you have a project, and it's not just about technological things, not about just embedded computers, telemetry, and connectivity. It's about the process and people too. And when you automate, make the automation of the process, first of the all, you need to understand the process. And it's
Yes,
a barrier. Yes, it's the barrier in the mine today, because the part of the people don't understand the process. Just do production. Just is looking for production. No, production. Not about production. It's different. Okay, and to automate a process, to make the automation in the process in the implementation system, you look for the truck, you look for connectivity, but you look for the people and the process too, and integrate it to reduce the human inputs. And after that, you have the good data to take good decisions. It's not just about beautiful dashboards. It's about connecting every block, and they understand this all. Okay.
You actually went into a different direction than I expected, in the sense that you talked also about system well, I should say process automation and system integration, as opposed to machine automation, which was where my mind was going. But absolutely, you are right that process automation and system automation is something that is, firstly, I think, growing at an immense pace. And secondly, it is becoming easier and easier to do. You think of what you can do with tools like Microsoft's Power Automate, right? It can automate an immense amount of work very reliably with a good audit trail, etc., etc. And that's a different way of thinking around the automation of the business. It is not only does the vehicle do its work, or the machine, or the drill, or the haul truck do its work in an automated way. That's that's an interesting perspective there. I want to turn maybe to the future.
Empie,
Before
if you allow me, I really want to share. I want to share a quote, something that you mentioned talking about automation. I will take the liberty here to mention one colleague from the mining market, Gabriel Gueiro. He mentioned one thing to me that was really, really interesting. In the past, when we are discussing about the full autonomous equipment, full operation without no operator, moving alone, was always a discussion regarding the cuts, the implementation, return of the investment, as Geraldo mentioned, and then COVID pandemic appears in the map. All of a sudden, nobody was expecting that. So it was at all the problem, how to continue producing, how to continue the operation without put the operators in risk, to take care of the people's lives, but at the same time the company needs to deliver what they promised the market. And there was one mine that Geraldo Ongaro was working that was using autonomous, and this mine was the unique one that produced without problem. He mentioned to me that after that, all the discussions stopped if it's good or not, but they only discussed about the timing, the investment, how to. So something that happened in our lives in the world changed. There's a shift in the business, and I believe that COVID pandemic made this a lot. Connectivity became something that was really important. People talking online, so changed the market and changed our market too in our daily business. So that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, it's interesting how sometimes it is the English language says necessity is the mother of all invention. You know, when you have to do something, you do it.
One point about the discussion, we talk about system integration, and I deliver process automation because they are connected, okay? And you look for integration system in the mining, for example, SAP, MAS, and Caterpillar system, and the fleet management system. Today is easier to in the point of technological view is easier. It's not so hard because you have APIs, you connect APIs, you can get the API of SAP and on MAS, the endpoints, or Easymine, connect the cable in Caterpillar and read the VIMS protocol. It's okay for this, but what do you get for SAP and put the Easymine? What do you get for MAS and put Easymine to deliver a complete dashboard to take decision? You need to understand the process automation to get the value, the correct field, the correct data in the correct time to deliver value. And because the system integration and automated process, it's connected every time it connects.
Absolutely. Okay. So, you know, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned a rail terminal case study that you have worked on. So can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you did there and why that stands out as a successful project in your mind?
Yes. It's a sample when you talk about automation process system integration. I will tell about this project. It's not a large project in the big mine, but it's a rail terminal case study. I love this project because everything is integrated, everything is automated, and I love this project. It's a small project, but in the biggest company, and it's extremely complex because we are understand how can the material entry with bricks, taxi systems, internal material movement, rail loading, health time waiting, wiggle by wiggle control, because it's very hard to understand this process. You have a lot of process from the mining in the small place with a lot of trucks delivery, with a lot of different operators deliver material to entry, and the internal movement gets this material put in another place and loads the wagon. It's but without a push a button. We just understand the waiting, real time for the load, the equipments, and we have automatic cycles and connect in the scale. Is very interesting. It's very good. It's a very good product, but we talk about the technological connectivity process and API. And when we started 20 years ago, in almost 6 months, we connected the embed. We developed our computer in Easymine. We are a fabric developer, everything, the solar towers, everything. But in 6 months, we connected the embedded computers, a telemetry of the truck, and made the connective and put in control room. Okay. But it's not. It was not a problem for us. It's not a problem today. But what's the importance in this highway case, in the highway terminal, for example? The people in the terminal understand the process, understand everything about the process, and like a guide for us. If you connect this one, you can get this value, put this value here. It's beautiful because it's not more about 20 years ago. It's not about technological. Today is not about technologies. You can put everything of technologies, everything recurse, autonomous recurse. If the guy on the mind or in the place does not understand the process, the what they need, it's a failure. It's a failure. The entire process was failure. Okay. But it's a best project we have because they understand the process. They understand what they need, and we implement this in 3 months, and the developer with them. It's a beautiful. Danilo, I will invite you, maybe, and Danilo to see this project, entire automatic project. It's a very beautiful project.
Yeah, exactly. We are not the automation technology, and we are not removing the human from the place. We are helping. Solutions are making the life easier. So there's always in some certain level, sometimes change, but all in certain level there's a human interaction, human interface that is related to technology. So if you're not convinced the people, if you not have the people on board with you, people that understand, that believes in the solution, and that help you to make this change, as I mentioned, we will fail. That's why people process one of the main pillars for this movement.
Yes. I think there's a cycle, that technology is going through and has gone through to a large extent. Initially, you had humans doing all the work, and then you had humans starting to do work with machines, right? So it was machine assisting the human. All right. And now that went into a place where we've got automation, where the machine is doing a lot of the work and the human is standing back, and now it is the human assisting the machine, right?
Exactly.
So that has flipped around. But in both cases, you need the machine and you need the human. Maybe the weight is shifting from the one to the other, but it's never a question of only one and not the other. You know what? We can carry on for a long time still, but I think we need to head this to an end. So on that topic of humanity and humanness and so on, I want to ask you, Danilo, you first, and then Geraldo afterwards. What do you do? I always end the podcast like this, so when you are not working in technology or in mining or anything like that, what is it that you do to relax, and what is it that you do to keep you sane?
I like to thanks for that's really a challenge today to keep you sane from everything that happened in your daily. I practice sports. I play soccer or football in Brazil 2 times per week, and there's a place where you laugh, you make jokes with your friends, you have connection with other people, so it removes your mind from what is happening. I always like to read. I try to keep reading, and I am a knack for films. I love movies. I love the theater, the movie in general. I love several kinds of. I try to learn. I try to understand, fully understand. So this is how I try to relax, and with my family, of course. Going outside, going something for dinner or for a park, because I have a a daughter of 8 years old. So imagine how she consume of my daily of my day.
Yeah, I mean, in a city,
hours.
in a city like São Paulo, going outside, you're just going into a big concrete jungle, you know.
Yes, yes, it's a challenge.
Yeah, that's
It's
wonderful,
different.
wonderful.
It's
Geraldo, on
different.
your side?
It's different than me, Danilo, because I live in Araxá, is a small city in the middle of Brazil. And when
You live in paradise. You live in
yes, I live in
paradise compared to
paradise.
me.
10 minutes from my house, from my home, without traffic. And I personally, I like to ride a bike, a mountain bike. In my city was a point for a World Cup mountain bike in the last 2 years. Is a great polo for mountain bike. And cycle, and I like to train every day. I train in mountain bike, and I'm amateur competitor. And it's to me, just to me, I need to care for by me, because I need to work a lot for my sons. And my kids they're my life, and when I stay with them, it's I erase everything. Everything is clear with my sons. It's my life, love my and for it's incredible too, but I like a development system when to relax. Yeah, yes, I like to study, stay in front of computers, because I don't know, since I started young, it's a part of my, but just write code, write codes. We have AI today, but I like to write code this Monday, just to relax. Just to relax. In my work, I don't write codes, but just relax, write codes, and see the videos, podcasts, and is this sports, family, and study. It's my passion.
So it's good to hear that Brazil is not only about Rio and the Carnival, or it's not only about the Amazon, or not only about mines, but that I've only flown through Brazil quite a few times, or traveled through, I should say, and then one time I spent a week or so there, and I was so impressed with it, with the people and the friendliness and the warm culture and so on. So I wish you all the best. Thank you for spending time with me on the podcast and sharing more about what Easymine does. And I hope that your vision of making mining more productive and more informative and more accurate for everyone really comes true, and that Easymine has a big role to play in that.
Okay, thank you very much, Danilo and Empie, for this opportunity. I'm glad to stay with you. I'm open to talk more, and the name for my company and my partners and my team. Thank you very much for this opportunity.